Let's talk to Trevor Kavanagh. He's former political editor of the Sun newspaper. And I say a little bit earlier, Trevor, with all due respect to you, you've been around a long time. When I first started in the House of Commons in the lobby, 1998, you were already, you know, the political editor of the biggest selling newspaper in the country. And, you know, you've watched the Prime Ministers come and you've watched them go over the years. You've had a hotline to all of them. How significant is Frockgate and Flatgate? Does any of this matter?
Oh, very much indeed. I think the optics mean a great deal, especially for a government which is only 8 weeks into office with a large majority, apparently a popular administration, suddenly falling apart. And the very interesting thing to me, Julia, and you will remember this from your days in the lobby, is that this information is coming from within the Starmer administration somewhere.
Yeah.
Nobody outside would have all of the information that's been leaked steadily, drip by drip.
Yes, it's not just from the register of MPs' interest in the House of Commons. There's definitely other information that is, say, explaining. No, they were there on these dates. You know, they claimed this, they claimed that, and that is definitely being fed to the media, isn't it, by someone who's, should we say, at the least disgruntled.
Yes, and I mean, this is coming from a very senior source. Who else would know, for instance, about Lord Alli's flats being used for these national broadcasts by the leader then of the opposition? Nobody but someone with very good contacts who means harm to this Prime Minister personally, not to the Labour Party necessarily, because I think that this is a different subject. But what we're seeing is the emergence of a sort of Politburo type government where special benefits are available to those at the top, like Keir Starmer. And you have a sort of smack of the post-war period when the Labour Party decided it was in power and we are the masters now.
Yeah.
We will do what we're told, not what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's a big, the hypocrisy issue is, I think, the number one issue for many people in terms of the criticisms, which were quite rightly, I think, aimed at Boris Johnson and various freebies that he got. And we were told, you know, they were going to be white on the white. They, you know, one of the key selling points for Keir Starmer, he said, I was director of public prosecutions. I obey the rules, you know, and we all thought, oh, he's a bit po-faced, but, you know, but at least he's kind of a, you know, Tony Blair once said, you know, a pretty straight kind of guy. Well, it turns out he's not. Now, what do you make of all the excuses we had? Because we've had all the excuses about the suits and the glasses, and, you know, he was out on campaign and he needed to look smart, as if a man on the sort of salaries that Keir Starmer's owned over the years couldn't actually afford some decent suits and glasses himself. And who needs 6 pairs of glasses anyway? And then the frocks for his wife. And again, she didn't even play a role in the campaign at all. We never saw her, did we? Again, perfectly capable of buying her own dresses. She's got her own income, a joint family income, easy to pay for it. But then we've got the flat. Now, we knew that Lord Alli's flat had been used, we were told, sort of for campaign purposes. It was used, we now know, on election night, as that's where they watched the results. But we also now know it was used between May and July this year. We're told that was about 20 grand's worth of use. But that works out over those 7 weeks as £450 a night. Now, for those people who don't know London, you can't rent an £18 million penthouse in Covent Garden with a big roof terrace for 450 quid a night. You'd be lucky to get a queen bed in a Hilton in central London for that price. Those numbers are completely out of kilter with the reality. And he claimed that this a penthouse apartment had to be used for his son, his boy, as he called him, because he was doing his GCSEs and he was too noisy with all the media and protests outside his house in Kentish Town, and he didn't want his son's exam results to be affected, even though they stayed in the apartment for a month after his exams had finished. And even though I'm not aware of any protests outside his home, I think those might have been in the media at some point, and there were only a couple of photographers out there most days. Does any of this add up to you?
Nothing at all. I mean, I wonder what Airbnb would charge for a flat like that per night. Certainly a lot more than just under £500 a night.
Yeah.
But what the line I loved best out of all of this explanation from Starmer about this largesse was his point that any parent would do the same. Well, how many parents are offered a £490 a night penthouse for a month at someone else's expense? And this adds to the question, what is in this for Lord Alli? And why is Lord Alli basically the paymaster of this Starmer government? It isn't the trade unions anymore. It is one individual who has been tied up with the, Lord Alli, and I've known Lord Alli not well, but I've certainly known of him for a long time. And he's right in at the thick of all of this. And he's a businessman. He's not doing this for nothing.
No, exactly. And this is the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, people don't give money to political parties and then just say, well, bye then. Thanks very much. Here's a few million quid. Have a good time with that. They normally give it because they want something, some particular policy. Now, some are very blatant and open about it. We want a particular policy on fuel, or a particular policy on business or on tax. People lobby. Think tanks lobby all the time for policies that they agree with. I mean, we're entitled, you and I are entitled to lobby our local MP and party leaders for policies that we want change. But in terms of if we haven't seen any specific policy that Lord Alli has benefited from, what is the benefit people get? Because we know one specific benefit he's had is his access all areas past to number 10 Downing Street, which mysteriously disappeared as soon as this became public for about a month or so after the election victory. Now, cabinet ministers don't have access all area passes to number 10. Very, very few people do. Given to him, we understand, by Sue Gray, the Chief of Staff. He, of course, quite by coincidence, had given, I think, was it 20 grand to her son, who ran as a Labour candidate and is now a Labour MP. Just a complete coincidence that she apparently was involved in him getting the pass. What sort of benefit does Lord Alli get from having that pass so he can just walk into number 10 and go into any room at any time? What benefit does he get from having that access?
Well, I think it's all sorts of ways in which it could be beneficial to him. He can always cite the fact that he has this access to his business colleagues and clients and so on. Right. Just leave it to me, I'll put a word in someone's ear for you.
Right.
But I think that one of the things I've always worried about the Labour incoming government under Keir Starmer is that Starmer himself is a very thin-skinned man. He doesn't like criticism of any sort. And he certainly doesn't like press criticism. It always worried me that one day a big story would break, as it is in fact breaking now, which affects him and his family personally, and about which he will get very aggrieved and perhaps take action. And of course, as you know, Lord Alli is on the record of wanting to have action taken against newspapers who write disobliging stories about politicians, especially Labour politicians, and especially about himself and Keir Starmer.
Yeah, exactly. And again, why, you know, you have to be able to take the criticism if you're in this job, and especially when you've done things that people want to criticise you for. I thought it was extraordinary for Keir Starmer, the interviews that were played out yesterday after Labour conference, basically saying he didn't believe that the Sue Gray, his Chief of Staff's salary, should be a subject of public debate. Quite apart from the fact that it would be made public very soon anyway, but it was revealed. It's £3 more than the Prime Minister himself earns at £170,000, but her salary is paid by the taxpayer. We've got every sodding right to debate how much she's earned and whether she's worth it. I don't think it's up to the Prime Minister to decide what we talk about.
Well, as I say, I think we're into the sort of Soviet... he is a declared socialist, which is only one step away from being a communist, in my view, at any rate. Well, this is where we get into the Orwellian situation where we're all equal, but some of us are more equal than others. And I think that you said earlier, is this going to be a serious long-term problem for the Labour government, all of this scandal, which is now a scandal?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. First impressions count, and they stick like mud. And people who have been paying attention over the last few weeks about what's been happening under this government, the release of these prisoners, many of them now back in jail, the taking away of the winter warming benefit, and a host of other things which they will not like, coupled with this. I mean, this is sleaze, frankly.
Well, it is, and
scandalous sleaze, and it's something that will not go away in the minds of the voters, and we will see evidence of this very quickly, if not already.
Absolutely. We've seen it in the polling. I mean, he's less popular than Rishi Sunak was when he lost the election, and indeed Liz Truss was when she was ousted from power after just 49 days, which is something. I mean, just finally, at the same time as, you know, living the life of Riley in an £18 million penthouse apartment in central London, I mean, wouldn't we all like to do that? At the same time, we're told we're going to have a painful budget ahead, and we had a lot of doom and gloom at Labour Party conference as well about how tough things were, and we're not going to be able to have better public services with low no taxes. You know, the hints are all there. And yet at the same time, we were told we wouldn't see taxes raised on working people. Well, that's most people in this country. And it's quite clear that taxes are going to go up on most working people, including sin taxes. We're told that sin tax rate on booze in the budget is likely. Pubs already worried about the prospect of an outdoor smoking ban affecting their beer gardens and the like. You know, we're expecting there to be pay-per-mile charges, fuel duty perhaps not being frozen anymore. All of the taxes that absolutely affect average, ordinary working people who don't have the benefit of a multimillionaire mate who pays for everything.
That's absolutely true. And these are the very voters who took a punt on Starmer and decided they couldn't put up with any more of the Tories because of their sleaze. And suddenly that sleaze is being eclipsed by the incoming government that they trusted to do the right thing as they were promised. And, you know, going back briefly to the appearances on television when he did his national broadcast from Lord Alli's flat.
Yes.
That was actually a deception. The fact that he had behind him on the shelves pictures which had been placed there of his family and other indications that this was his own private home. That's deceit, isn't it?
That certainly is. They certainly expected us to think it was his home, and undoubtedly. Trevor Kavanagh, thank you very much. Always good to talk to you, former political editor of The Sun.